As the 2009 legislative session convened, one of the overriding issues that stood out at the top of a lot of people's priority list was transportation, whether it be transportation funding or transportation governance. Over the last several years, there have been some real issues with the Georgia Department of Transportation. Some have described it as dysfunctional. Others have said that it needs to be abandoned. The governor, the lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House had a joint press conference where they announced a plan to put together a new governance plan for the Georgia Department of Transportation that would, in essence, set up a transportation authority separate from the Department of Transportation. The DOT would continue to handle maintenance, and this new authority would handle all of the planning and the new projects. That was one of the key issues going into the session. Another was transportation funding. It is quite clear over the last number of years that the state of Georgia has fallen behind many of our counterparts across the country in funding for road projects. And as Georgia continues to be a destination state, a place where people are continuing to move, one of the fastest growing states in the country, a quality of life that attracts many people, those transportation needs are continuing to increase. There is a real need in order to meet the transportation needs in Georgia to do something about transportation funding. Going into the session this year, the House and the Senate both introduced legislation that would have put a referendum on the ballot in November of 2010 to allow you, the voters, to decide what you want to do about transportation funding. The Senate passed a version that was a regional T-SPLOST plan, where the metro counties would make up a region, and then every other county individually in the state of Georgia would be considered a region, or they could partner with neighboring counties to create a larger region. The House passed a plan that was a statewide sales tax. Every county would be involved in it, and with this plan there were projects across the state that dealt with freight corridors and economic development corridors to move the freight and to move people around the state of Georgia most effectively. Also allowing those rural communities to have increased LARP funding as a result of that. Senator Mullis, the chairman of Transportation in the Senate, Representative Smith, the chairman of Transportation in the House, put in countless hours working on this very issue. And over the course of the last week or so of session, those gentlemen, along with others on the conference committee, met numerous times to try to bring together a compromise that would put a transportation funding referendum on the ballot in November of 2010. While I believe they got close in the late hours of the 40th day, they weren't quite able to get there. So we ended the 2009 session with no plan for funding of transportation. A lot of people look at that as a failure. I think it's important to understand this, though. We're looking at a plan that will be on the ballot in November of 2010. Those gentlemen and many others will work hard throughout the remainder of this year and throughout the 2010 session, and I believe that when the 2010 session ends, we will have a plan that will be on the ballot in November of 2010. Same time it would have been had it passed this year. We're making progress in transportation. I really believe that. And I think that you'll see something develop over the next year that'll end up on the ballot in November of 2010. Transportation governance was an issue that we were able to reach an agreement on. Rather than taking so much of the control away from the Department of Transportation, it was decided to continue to allow the Department of Transportation Board to be elected in the same way that they are and to have the basic same responsibilities, with one exception. There will be a new Director of Planning in the Department of Transportation. This Director of Planning will be appointed by the Governor and will be approved by the House Transportation Committee. This Director of Planning will be directly accountable to the Governor and the Legislature in developing a plan for those projects, those transportation projects in the future. One of the key differences that this plan brings to transportation is now the legislature has direct oversight in the funding of the Department of Transportation. We now are going to be more involved, just like we are with all the other departments in the budgeting process. We're going to be more involved in the budgeting of the projects for the Department of Transportation. I believe that this department this director of planning and this oversight from the legislature and the direct input in the budgeting process will create more accountability. It'll create a more open system, and I have high hopes that it will create a more efficient Department of Transportation. I believe we accomplished some things, even in the area of transportation in this session. I feel good about what we've done. Look forward to continuing to work and develop transportation needs throughout the year ahead. And I believe that we will see the funding formula or the funding referendum on the ballot in November of 2010. Thank you for your time. And again, if you have any questions, if you'd like to contact me, please feel free to do so with the email address or the phone number on the screen at the conclusion of this video. Thank you. And again, God bless you.